The ambush begins. The stars twinkled quietly in the vast emptiness of space as the alien fleet moved forward, confident in their strength. For years, they had conquered planet after planet, destroying everything in their path. The humans, once a fierce force, had disappeared from the galaxy. The aliens believed they had won. Earth was no longer a threat. At least, that's what they thought. General Varkin, leader of the alien fleet, stood on the bridge of his flagship, his hands clasped behind his back. His sharp eyes scanned the endless void of space through the massive windows. The fleet he commanded was powerful: cruisers, destroyers, and battleships, each one larger and more advanced than anything the humans had ever built. His ships were the pride of his people, and victory was certain. They had wiped out the last of the human colonies on the outer rim, and Earth had been silent for years. No one had heard from them in ages. To Varkin and his fleet, humanity was a distant memory. "They are gone," Varkin muttered to himself, "and we will take control of their last stronghold." His voice carried a sense of finality. The alien fleet was already deep inside human space, on their way to a small but important planet. This was the last world the humans held in the galaxy, and it would fall under alien control soon. The general had no doubts. He could almost hear the cheers of victory from his soldiers. Soon, the galaxy would belong to them. As the fleet moved closer to their target, the crew of the flagship prepared for battle. Varkin knew that this planet, though small, had been heavily fortified. The humans were known for their fierce resistance, but the general wasn't worried. The humans no longer had the strength to fight back. Or so he thought. Suddenly, a low hum vibrated through the ship. The crew went silent, glancing nervously at their consoles. Varkin's sharp eyes narrowed. "Report," he ordered, his voice cold and steady. One of the officers, a young alien with pale green skin, hesitated before answering. "Sir, we've picked up an anomaly. It appears to be a faint signal, coming from an unknown source." The general raised an eyebrow. The signal? Could it be human? But the humans had no technology capable of sending messages across such vast distances, especially from hidden locations. Varkin dismissed the thought quickly. It was probably just a glitch, a trick of space. The humans were gone, their technology outdated. He turned to leave the bridge when a sharp voice stopped him. "Sir, the signal is growing stronger." Varkin turned back, his eyes narrowing. "Increase the power to the scanners. Find the source of this signal." The officer nodded and worked quickly at his console. The strange signal became clearer, more defined. But there was something unsettling about it. It didn't sound like anything the aliens had ever encountered before. The signal was coming from the dark side of the planet they were approaching, a place their sensors had marked as empty. It was strange, too strange. "Commander," Varkin said, his voice low, "what are we dealing with?" "It's not human technology, General. But it's something powerful." Varkin's mind raced. He knew that the human race had once been a formidable foe, capable of surprising even the most advanced alien civilizations. But they had disappeared. They couldn't have built anything like this, could they? The general felt a shiver of doubt for the first time in years. His confidence faltered. Could the humans still be alive? And if so, why hadn't they shown themselves before now? He didn't have much time to think. The officers on the bridge suddenly stood up, their eyes wide with shock. "Sir, we're detecting a massive object on the other side of the planet. It's massive." Varkin's heart skipped a beat. Massive. The only thing that could be massive enough to pose a threat was a battleship. But the humans had no such ships. At least, that's what he had been told. "Are you sure?" Varkin demanded, his voice sharp with disbelief. The officer looked back at the general, fear evident in his eyes. "Yes, sir. It's a ship. And it's moving." A cold silence fell over the bridge. Varkin felt his throat tighten. He had underestimated the humans. If they had somehow managed to rebuild their military, he had no idea what kind of force they could be hiding. His confidence was quickly turning into caution. "Bring us into firing range," Varkin ordered, his voice steely with authority. He had to see this ship for himself. If it was truly a human battleship, he would destroy it. It would be just another victory in their long campaign. The alien fleet moved into position, weapons ready. The crew waited in tense anticipation. The signal grew stronger as they drew closer, the mysterious ship still hidden in the shadows of the planet. Varkin stared at the screen, his mind racing. What was this? And why hadn't the humans shown this kind of power earlier? As the ship finally came into view, the entire bridge froze. The alien officers gasped. What they saw was no ordinary human vessel. It was a massive, dark ship, its design sleek and terrifying. It looked ancient, yet its power was undeniable. The human battleship emerged from the shadows like a ghost, its dark hull gleaming ominously. General Varkin's heart raced. He had thought they were safe. But now, he realized, they were far from it. The human battleship. The alien fleet had gathered in formation, their ships looming like giant predators, ready to pounce. The general stood still, his eyes locked on the dark shape emerging from the shadows of the planet. It was a massive, imposing vessel, something that felt out of place. The alien ships were designed for power and speed, but this human battleship, it was something else entirely. Ancient, and yet undeniably deadly. General Varkin's mind raced. He had believed the human race was long gone, their technology obsolete, their fleets reduced to dust. But what he saw before him was a challenge. The human battleship was unlike anything he had ever seen before. Its design was old, but there was a sense of danger emanating from it, like a long-forgotten weapon being brought back to life. The ship was dark, almost blending into the void of space, with sharp angles and jagged edges that seemed to promise destruction. The crew of the alien flagship stood frozen, eyes wide with disbelief. The officers exchanged nervous glances, unsure of what to do. This was no ordinary human vessel. It was something far more advanced, far more dangerous, and it was moving toward them, slowly but with purpose. "Open fire," Varkin barked, his voice cold and commanding, but there was a hint of uncertainty behind his words. The alien fleet's weapons were more than capable of reducing any ship to rubble, but something about this human battleship made him pause. His instincts told him this wasn't going to be an easy victory. The fleet's weapons charged up, ready to unleash a torrent of destruction. The massive energy cannons, capable of obliterating entire planets, were aimed directly at the battleship. The flagship's main guns powered up, their deadly glow illuminating the darkness of space. Varkin's eyes narrowed as the countdown began. He had no idea what kind of ship this was or what it could do, but he wasn't going to take any chances. His fleet was here to win, to conquer, and he wouldn't let one ship, no matter how intimidating, stop them. "Fire," the general's voice cut through the tension. The first volley of energy blasts erupted from the alien fleet, lighting up the vastness of space. The beams of energy surged toward the human battleship, powerful enough to destroy any normal ship in their path. The crew of the alien ships watched as the blasts collided with the dark ship. For a moment, nothing happened. The human battleship remained still, its dark silhouette barely moving as the blast struck it. The alien fleet waited, holding its breath. Had the attack worked? Then, with a sudden burst of light, the human battleship shifted. The blasts that had hit it did nothing. They bounced off its hull, like water hitting a stone. The ship remained unscathed, its hull shimmering faintly as though it had absorbed the energy, but it didn't seem to be damaged at all. The silence on the bridge of the alien flagship was deafening. General Varkin's jaw tightened. He had never seen anything like this before. His fleet had taken down entire worlds with a single shot, and yet this ship, this ancient human vessel, seemed to shrug off their most powerful attacks like they were nothing more than a nuisance. "Report," Varkin shouted, his voice harsh. The officer at the scanner station quickly glanced at his console, eyes wide with disbelief. "Sir, The human ship's energy shields. They're absorbing the blasts. It's like their shields are feeding on the energy. Varkan's mind raced. The humans had no such technology. Or at least they hadn't. No one had ever seen anything like it. The general's heart pounded in his chest. Could it be that the humans had somehow developed a weapon that far surpassed anything in their arsenal? Had they truly returned to the battlefield with such power? The human battleship moved closer, its engines glowing faintly as it advanced through the debris of its own shattered energy blasts. The ship's weapons were now coming online. Strange, glowing turrets began to power up on its surface, and Varkan could feel the heat from the weapons even from his flagship. "Prepare to fire again," Varkan barked, but this time there was uncertainty in his voice. His fleet was not prepared for this. The energy shields on their ships were powerful, but nothing in their arsenal had prepared them for this kind of resistance. Before he could issue another command, the human battleship fired. The blast came in an instant, a concentrated beam of pure energy that shot across the void of space with terrifying speed. It hit the Lid cruiser in the alien fleet, instantly disintegrating the massive ship. No explosion, no warning, just utter destruction. The crew on the flagship gasped. The sight of the alien cruiser being wiped from existence with a single blast was enough to freeze everyone in their tracks. Varkan's eyes widened in disbelief. He had seen many weapons in his life, but nothing like this. The human ship had no right to possess such firepower. It was impossible. And yet, here it was, an ancient human battleship wielding the power to destroy anything in its path. "Retreat," Varkan ordered, his voice sharp with panic. "Move the fleet back now." But it was too late. The human battleship, now fully engaged, began to fire again, each shot tearing through the alien fleet with devastating precision. The alien ships, though advanced, were no match for the sheer power of the human warship. The battle had only just begun, and already the aliens were beginning to realize the truth. The humans were back, and they were not to be underestimated. General Varkan stood at the helm of his flagship, watching as his fleet was torn apart by the human battleship. He had thought they were safe, but now, as the reality of the situation hit him, he knew this was just the beginning of a war he hadn't prepared for. The humans were back, and they were bringing destruction. The tide turns. The human battleship loomed over the alien fleet, its dark silhouette cutting through the stars like a harbinger of doom. General Varkan's fleet was in chaos, the once dominant force now scattered and in disarray. His ships were being destroyed one by one, torn apart by the sheer force of the human vessel's firepower. The space around him was filled with debris, the remnants of his once proud armada floating in silence. His heart raced as he gripped the console in front of him. He had never felt fear like this. The humans, long thought to be extinct or weak, had just proven they were anything but. Their battleship was a weapon unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Each shot, each blast, sent shockwaves through his ships, leaving them burning and shattered in its wake. "Status report," Varkan barked, his voice filled with panic. The officer at the scanners turned quickly, his face pale. "Sir, we've lost 3 more ships. The human battleship's weapons are too powerful. We've only managed to damage their shields slightly, but it's not enough. We can't keep up with their firepower." Varkan's mind raced. The battle was slipping out of his control. He had thought his fleet was unbeatable, that no force could challenge the might of the alien empire. But this was a nightmare. The humans were using weapons far beyond anything he had imagined. He looked out into the void, trying to gather his thoughts. The once confident alien fleet was now in retreat, its ships scattering as they tried to escape the relentless assault. But the human battleship wasn't giving them the chance. Its weapons fired relentlessly, each shot a death sentence for any alien ship unlucky enough to cross its path. The alien flagship's shields flickered as another blast from the human battleship struck it. Varkan's knuckles whitened as he gripped the console. The damage was spreading, the energy output of their shields struggling to hold up against the constant barrage. "Sir," another officer shouted from across the room, his voice trembling. "The human ship is locking onto our position. They're preparing to fire again." Varkin's eyes widened in alarm. This was it. If the human ship destroyed the flagship, the entire fleet would crumble. The alien empire's might would be reduced to nothing, and the humans would have their victory. The general's mind raced, searching for a way out. He couldn't defeat the human battleship head-on. It was simply too powerful. But maybe he could trick them. Maybe he could use their own arrogance against them. "Redirect all power to the aft shields," Varkin ordered, his voice sharp. "I want a full retreat in 3 minutes. All ships, make for the asteroid field at Sector 9. We'll use the terrain to hide and regroup." The officers looked at each other, confused. "But sir," the human ship. "I know what I'm doing," Varkin interrupted, his voice cold. "Just do it." The crew scrambled, setting the orders into motion. The alien fleet, now battered and weakened, began to shift its position. The ships moved away from the human battleship, angling toward the asteroid field. Varkin hoped that the dense field of asteroids would provide enough cover to make the human ship think they were retreating entirely. The humans would follow, thinking they had won, and the alien fleet could then regroup and strike when the time was right. But as the alien ships turned, the human battleship wasn't far behind. It followed them with chilling precision, its engines glowing faintly in the distance, like a predator stalking its prey. It was relentless, unyielding. The human ship showed no signs of slowing down, and it was gaining on them quickly. Varkin's mind raced as he saw the human ship's weapons power up once again. His ships were nowhere near ready for another round of battle, and he couldn't risk staying in open space any longer. The asteroid field was their only hope. "Prepare to engage evasive maneuvers," Varkin ordered, his voice steely. "Get us into the field, now." The alien fleet dove toward the asteroid field, their ships weaving through the floating rocks in a desperate attempt to lose the human battleship. The human ship followed, its weapons still locked onto their positions, but the field was vast and filled with hazards. The humans would have to navigate it carefully, or risk crashing into one of the asteroids. But just as the alien ships began to feel a glimmer of hope, a strange sound filled the bridge of the flagship. A low, rumbling noise, almost like thunder. It was coming from behind them, from the human battleship. Varkin's eyes widened as he looked toward the dark silhouette of the enemy vessel. Without warning, the human ship fired again. But this time, instead of a focused beam, the shot was spread out, creating a wide area of destruction. The blast hit the asteroid field, causing massive chunks of rock to break off and fly into space, creating an expanding cloud of debris. The alien fleet was caught in the blast radius. Ships were struck by the debris, their shields failing as they were pelted by massive rocks. The fleet was thrown into disarray, their path to safety blocked by the very terrain they had hoped to use for cover. Varkin's heart sank as he watched his fleet being torn apart by the humans' unconventional attack. The human battleship had anticipated their every move, adapting to the situation with ease. It was as though they had been prepared for this moment all along. "Retreat, full retreat," Varkin screamed, but it was too late. The human ship had them cornered, and now there was no way out. The tide of the battle had turned. What had started as a simple ambush had become a full-blown nightmare for the alien fleet. One by one, the alien ships began to fall, their shields buckling under the humans' relentless assault. The general stood frozen in place, his mind struggling to process the defeat. How had the humans come back so strong? What had happened to the weak, primitive race he had dismissed so long ago? The answer was clear. The humans were no longer the prey. They had become the hunters. And now, the alien fleet was paying the price for their underestimation. The human battleship loomed larger, its weapons powered up, preparing for the final strike. Varkin knew that the end was near, his fleet was finished, and he could only hope to survive the onslaught that was about to come. a desperate last stand. The remaining alien ships were scattered across the asteroid field, their once proud formations now broken and disorganized. General Varkin's flagship was barely holding together, the outer hull battered from the constant barrage of fire from the human battleship. Inside, the atmosphere was tense, the hum of alarms echoing through the corridors as officers rushed to maintain what little control they had left. "Sir, the enemy is closing in," shouted the communications officer, his voice full of panic. Varkin's eyes narrowed as he watched the human ship advance on them, its massive form gliding through the asteroid field with ease, unharmed by the debris around it. The human battleship was like a predator hunting its prey, and the alien fleet was slowly being picked off, one ship at a time. "We can't keep running," Varkin muttered under his breath. His eyes scanned the damage reports flickering across the console in front of him. The energy levels were dropping fast, and there was no way to hold out much longer. "Prepare to make our last stand. If we die today, we will take as many of them with us as we can." The crew members exchanged worried glances, but knew there was no other choice. The time for retreat was over. It was now or never. "Activate the fleet's self-destruct mechanisms," Varkin ordered, his voice steady but full of resolve. "We will destroy every last ship before they get the chance to pick us off." The officers didn't hesitate. They quickly activated the self-destruct systems on each ship, setting them to trigger in a matter of minutes. The alien ships, though damaged, were still capable of one last, desperate strike. Varkin watched as the countdown appeared on the main display, each second ticking away like a death sentence. "We will show the humans that we are not so easily defeated," Varkin said, his voice cold and defiant. "Let them feel the wrath of the greatest fleet the galaxy has ever known." The human battleship, now only a few kilometers away, loomed larger and larger in the viewports. It fired again, its weapons slicing through the asteroid field, leaving nothing but destruction in its wake. The alien ships scattered as best as they could, but there was nowhere to hide. The human ship was too fast, too powerful. "Prepare to fire all remaining weapons," Varkin commanded. His fingers flew across the controls as he issued the order, the remaining alien ships shifting into position for one final coordinated assault. The alien ships began firing their remaining weapons in unison, their lasers and energy blasts streaking through the void, targeting the human battleship. It was a desperate attack, but it was all they had left. The human ship's shields flickered as the first few blasts struck, but it quickly adjusted, absorbing the energy and continuing its advance. The alien fleet's last-ditch effort seemed almost pointless, but Varkin wasn't ready to give up yet. His fleet was about to go down, but he would not let it be without a fight. The alien ships poured every last ounce of energy into their weapons, firing relentlessly at the human ship. Then, a moment of horror. The human battleship opened fire again, this time with a devastating barrage that struck several of the alien ships directly. The explosions were catastrophic, sending massive shockwaves through the asteroid field. Pieces of the alien fleet scattered in all directions as the human ship's firepower ripped through the remnants of Varkin's forces. Varkin gripped the console as his heart raced. His fleet was crumbling. His plan had failed. And yet, despite the overwhelming odds, the alien ships didn't give up. They continued to fight, their weapons firing in desperate bursts, even as they were torn apart one by one. "We will not go quietly," Varkin shouted. "We will not be forgotten." Just as it seemed the final blow was about to land, the countdown reached 0. The self-destruct mechanisms activated across the fleet. One by one, the alien ships erupted in a series of blinding explosions, the force of each blast sending ripples through the asteroid field. The human battleship was forced to veer off to avoid being caught in the chaos. The once mighty alien fleet was gone, reduced to rubble and dust. Only the human battleship remained, hovering silently in the midst of the destruction. Its weapons powered down as the crew on board assessed the aftermath. The battle was over. The aliens had fought fiercely, but in the end, they were no match for the power of humanity's warships. Varkan's flagship had been the last to explode, the blast sending a final shockwave through the void. His face was a mixture of anger and acceptance as he watched the destruction unfold. The alien fleet had fallen, but humanity had proven its strength. It had fought back with unimaginable power, defeating an enemy that had seemed invincible. And though the battle had been lost, General Varkan knew this was only the beginning. Humanity had emerged victorious this time, but the war was far from over. The galaxy had just witnessed the true power of Earth's forces, and there would be no going back. The human battleship turned, its engines glowing as it moved deeper into the void, ready for whatever challenge lay ahead. The aliens had underestimated humanity. Now, they would learn to fear them. The aftermath. The dust from the battle settled in the cold vacuum of space. Asteroids drifted aimlessly where once the alien fleet had been, their surfaces marked with scars of destruction. The debris from destroyed ships sparkled like shattered glass, pieces of metal and shattered hulls slowly drifting in all directions. But amid the chaos, one ship remained standing, humanity's battleship. Its massive frame loomed over the remains of the alien fleet like a predator, victorious and untouchable. Inside the battleship, the crew was silent. The usual sounds of their daily operations, the soft hum of machinery, the chatter over communications, had been replaced with a somber stillness. Every crew member had witnessed the brutal power of the alien fleet and the desperate final stand that had followed. Now, they were left to process the enormity of the victory they had just achieved. The cost of the battle had been high, but humanity had won. "Report," came the voice of Captain Ryle, his tone calm but authoritative. He stood at the command console, his eyes scanning the readouts from the battle. Despite the victory, his face betrayed no hint of celebration. This wasn't the time for joy. It was time to evaluate the situation and prepare for what was to come. A young officer, Lieutenant Drake, stepped forward. "All alien ships have been destroyed, Captain. The remaining debris is too scattered to provide any useful information. We've lost several smaller ships in the fleet, but the flagship remains operational. No signs of further threats, at least for now." "Good." Captain Ryle nodded, but his mind was already focused on the next challenge. "What about the alien commander? Did we receive any information on their leadership?" Lieutenant Drake hesitated before replying. "No sign of General Varkan or his flagship's remains. It's possible that he perished with the last wave of explosions, but we haven't recovered anything definitive." Ryle's jaw tightened. He had hoped that Varkan, the leader of the alien fleet, would have been captured alive. The aliens had underestimated humanity at every turn, and if the general was still alive, capturing him would give them invaluable intelligence. "Continue scanning the area. I want to know if anything survived," Ryle ordered. "In the meantime, prepare for a briefing. We'll need to report this victory to the Galactic Council. Let them know humanity's strength." The crew moved quickly, their actions coordinated, but it was clear that their minds were far from the work at hand. They were processing what had just happened, the destruction of an entire alien fleet, the overwhelming power of their own battleship, and the realization that their enemies would now know the truth. Humanity was a force to be reckoned with. As Ryle walked through the dimly lit corridors of the battleship, his thoughts drifted to the bigger picture. This victory was only the beginning. The alien fleet had underestimated humanity, and that had been their downfall. But now, with the alien forces scattered and their commander likely dead, the galaxy was suddenly very different. Humanity had proven its strength, but what would that mean for the future? Suddenly, a voice crackled through the ship's intercom system. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the Galactic Council." Ryle stopped in his tracks, his heart racing. The Galactic Council had long considered Earth a backwater planet, unworthy of their attention. But now, with the alien fleet destroyed, they would be forced to acknowledge humanity's presence on the galactic stage. It was time for them to understand that humanity was not to be underestimated. "Put it through," Captain Ryle said, taking a deep breath. The Council's reaction was going to be interesting, to say the least. The screen in front of him flickered, and the stern faces of several Council members appeared. They were the leaders of the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy, and they regarded humanity with a mix of skepticism and disdain. But Ryle was ready for whatever they had to say. "We've received word of the destruction of the alien fleet," one of the Council members, a tall, reptilian alien, said. "Explain yourself, Captain. How is it possible that your forces were able to defeat such a powerful enemy?" Ryle stood tall, his expression unwavering. "We've shown the galaxy that humanity can stand toe-to-toe with the strongest forces. We're no longer the weak species you once thought we were. The battle is over, and humanity is now a force to be reckoned with." The Council members exchanged looks, their expressions unreadable. They had underestimated humanity once, but now they were seeing the results of that mistake. The silence stretched on as the Council members processed Ryle's words. Finally, a voice from the back of the screen spoke. "What do you intend to do next, Captain? The war with the alien forces may be over, but the galaxy is still full of dangers. Will you turn your attention to other threats?" Ryle's gaze hardened. "We're not stopping here. Humanity will defend its place in the galaxy. We've proven that we can defeat our enemies. But now we need to know what else is out there." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving Captain Ryle staring at the now blank screen. The Council had no answers for him, only questions. But it was clear that humanity's place in the galaxy had just changed. The alien fleet was gone, and the humans were no longer the underdogs. The future was uncertain, but one thing was for sure. Humanity would never be seen as weak again. Ryle turned away from the console, his mind already set on the next steps. The galaxy had just witnessed the power of Earth's warships, and now it was time to prepare for whatever came next. The silent threat. The silence that followed the destruction of the alien fleet was deafening. Inside the human battleship, Captain Ryle stood at the helm, his hands gripping the console. His eyes scanned the stars ahead, but they didn't bring him any comfort. The victory was hollow. It wasn't the battle that worried him, it was what came after. Humanity had defeated the alien fleet, but now there were questions no one could answer. The Galactic Council was watching. The Council had seen Earth's power, but did that mean they would welcome humanity as an equal, or would they see them as a threat to their own power? Captain Ryle's mind raced as he thought about the future. The galaxy was vast, and humanity had only just begun to make its mark on the stars. What would happen if other civilizations saw humanity's strength as a challenge? What if they wanted to take Earth for themselves? The victory was significant, but it was only the beginning of a much larger story. "Captain, we've received a strange transmission," said Lieutenant Drake, interrupting Ryle's thoughts. Ryle turned sharply. "Strange? What do you mean?" Drake hesitated before speaking. "It's encrypted, Captain. We've never received a signal like this before. The frequency is off the charts, and it's not from any known species." Ryle's pulse quickened. A new threat. Something more dangerous than the alien fleet they had just defeated. "Put it through," he ordered. The screen flickered, and a series of strange symbols appeared, followed by a distorted voice. It was garbled at first, but soon the words became clearer. "This is the Shadow Collective. You have made a powerful enemy, Earth." The voice was cold, mechanical, as if it came from something far beyond human understanding. Ryle's heart skipped a beat. The Shadow Collective. He'd heard rumors, whispers of a hidden race, watching from the shadows, pulling the strings of galactic events, but no one had ever confirmed their existence. The Shadow Collective. Ryle muttered under his breath. "Who are you?" The voice continued, its tone growing more ominous. "We have seen what you have done. The galaxy is not yours to conquer. We will take action. The battleship you wield is nothing compared to what we possess." Ryle's grip tightened on the console. He knew the stakes had just grown much higher. The alien fleet was a distant memory now, But this was something new, something far darker and more dangerous. "You've made a mistake, Captain," the voice continued, "and you will regret it. Soon, Earth will see what true power looks like." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the crew in stunned silence. The crew members exchanged nervous glances, not sure what to make of the message. They had just defeated one of the most powerful alien fleets in the galaxy, but now a new, even more sinister force had entered the picture. Who were the Shadow Collective? And why were they so angry at humanity? Ryle didn't need to say anything. His thoughts were clear on his face. This was far from over. If anything, it had just begun. The Shadow Collective had issued a warning, but Ryle knew that they wouldn't stop until they saw Earth brought to its knees. The fleet had just tasted victory, but now they had to prepare for an enemy they couldn't even see. "We need to get to the bottom of this," Ryle said, his voice steady. "Prepare the fleet. I want every ship ready for anything." Lieutenant Drake nodded. "Yes, Captain. But where do we start? We know nothing about the Shadow Collective." Ryle's eyes narrowed as he looked out at the endless expanse of space. "We start by finding out everything we can about them. No one threatens Earth without consequences. We've proven that we're a force to be reckoned with. Now, let's show the galaxy just how far we're willing to go to protect our home." The crew quickly went to work, setting the ship's systems to search for any trace of the Shadow Collective. Meanwhile, Captain Ryle stood motionless, lost in thought. The Shadow Collective had warned them, but Ryle wasn't one to back down from a fight. The galaxy was changing, and humanity had just drawn the attention of something far more dangerous than they had ever faced. As the crew worked, a single question burned in Ryle's mind. Who were the Shadow Collective, and why had they singled Earth out? And more importantly, what were they planning next? The galaxy was vast, and many threats lay hidden in its dark corners. But Ryle was certain of one thing. The Shadow Collective had made a grave mistake. They had underestimated humanity. And if they wanted to see the true strength of Earth, they would soon learn that humanity had only just begun to fight. The unknown was now humanity's biggest enemy, and they were ready to face it head-on. The battle for the future. Captain Ryle stood in the command center, his eyes fixed on the large screen in front of him. The stars outside the ship's viewports twinkled, indifferent to the chaos unfolding within the walls of the human battleship. The crew moved with urgency, preparing for the unknown threat of the Shadow Collective. They had no idea what the enemy was capable of, but they had one thing on their side: humanity's unyielding will to survive. "Captain," Lieutenant Drake called, breaking Ryle's concentration. "We found something. A signal. It's faint, but it's definitely there. It matches the frequency of the transmission from the Shadow Collective." Ryle's heart raced. The Shadow Collective had claimed that they would make Earth regret its victory. Now they had a chance to find out exactly what kind of power these mysterious enemies wielded. "Where is it coming from?" Ryle asked, his voice calm but tense. "It's coming from a dead zone in the galaxy," Drake replied, tapping the screen. "It's a region that no one dares enter. Uncharted, dangerous, but we've pinpointed the coordinates." Ryle's eyes narrowed. Dead zones were often places where civilizations had once thrived, only to vanish without a trace. It was a perfect hiding spot for an enemy like the Shadow Collective. And now, humanity was about to take the first steps into that very region. "Set a course," Ryle ordered. "We'll take the fleet there. We won't wait for them to come to us." The crew scrambled into action, preparing the fleet for the journey. The warships hummed with energy as they powered up their engines, ready for whatever lay ahead. As the fleet made its way into the heart of the dead zone, the tension was palpable. The vast emptiness of space stretched out before them, and with each passing minute, the feeling of uncertainty grew stronger. Ryle couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, that the Shadow Collective was closer than they realized. "Captain," came the voice of Lieutenant Drake once again. "We're approaching the coordinates. The signal's getting stronger." "Good. "Stay sharp," Ryle replied. He could feel the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. Humanity had faced countless challenges, but this felt different. The Shadow Collective wasn't like any enemy they had encountered before. They were shadows in the dark, their power unknown. Suddenly, the sensors blared with an alarm, cutting through the tension. Ryle's eyes shot to the screen, where a cluster of unidentified ships appeared on the radar. They were moving fast, faster than anything the humans had ever encountered. "Enemy ships incoming," a voice shouted from the tactical station. The ships were massive, their shapes unlike anything humanity had seen. Sleek, dark, and almost ghostly, they seemed to blend into the shadows of space itself. Ryle felt a chill run down his spine. These were no ordinary alien vessels. They had to be the Shadow Collective. "All ships, prepare for battle," Ryle commanded. "Take evasive action. Defend the fleet." The human warships fired their weapons, beams of light slicing through the darkness. But the Shadow Collective ships moved with unnatural speed and precision. They dodged the blasts effortlessly, returning fire with deadly accuracy. The human fleet had the numbers, but the Shadow Collective had something far more terrifying: an ability to strike with surgical precision, as if they knew every move humanity would make before they made it. The first wave of fire from the Shadow Collective ships hit one of the human cruisers, and it exploded in a burst of fire and debris. The crew aboard the cruiser fought valiantly to defend their ship, but the Shadow Collective's technology was far superior. In a matter of minutes, the cruiser was reduced to space dust. "Captain, we can't keep this up," Lieutenant Drake shouted. "Their ships are too advanced. We're losing ships faster than we can retaliate." Ryle's mind raced. This wasn't just a fight for survival. It was a battle for the future of humanity. If they lost now, Earth would fall. The Shadow Collective would ensure that humanity never had a chance to rise again. But Ryle wasn't about to give up. Not when so much was at stake. "Activate the new weapons protocol," Ryle ordered. The crew looked at him in confusion, but they didn't question the command. Humanity's scientists had developed a new kind of weapon, one that was still in its testing phase, but they had no choice. They had to try. As the new weapons powered up, the human fleet's ships glowed with an eerie, powerful light. Ryle held his breath as the first blast from the new weapon fired. The blast was unlike anything the Shadow Collective had encountered. The energy rippled through space like a wave, striking one of the enemy ships dead center. The ship shuddered, and for a moment, Ryle thought it might be destroyed. But the ship vanished into thin air, disappearing into the shadows. "Did we hit it?" Lieutenant Drake asked, eyes wide. Ryle couldn't believe it. The Shadow Collective ships seemed to dissolve in the wake of the blast, vanishing into the darkness. It was as if they had never been there at all. But then, the darkness seemed to move. More ships materialized from the shadows, seemingly endless, and the battle raged on. The Shadow Collective was relentless, and they weren't backing down. "We've only just begun," Ryle muttered, determination setting in. Humanity won't be defeated that easily. The fight for Earth's future had only just started, but Captain Ryle knew one thing for sure: humanity would face the Shadow Collective head-on, and they would fight with everything they had. Victory was still within reach.